Media tool.
Yeah. There's a few other things in some of the other things which are actually publicly out there. So just have a good.
You just have to look very carefully.
Yeah. Freeze frames. That does the trick.
Yeah. No, yeah. Well, it's good to know that there's stuff coming as well. 'Cause it's always, it's very hard, isn't it, that they're working on stuff, but they like to show it off. But you've got to know it's coming at some point.
Yeah. And the other thing I can tell you is that Donna Sarkis says to say hello to everybody listening to the show, and she's sorry she's not going to release an insider build this week.
Is that this week or today?
Well, today I think. Actually,
yeah.
She's too busy for us.
Yeah. Well, that'll be good. So if we can have a build on tomorrow night, it would be great.
Yeah.
Go press the button.
Well, I think there's a fight amongst the MVPs to go press the button. So.
Now, have we got Jason on?
You have just got to start using my actual.
Oh, I'll let you change your mic over. And I guess it's also, Gary, it's also election fever over there today, and as we record on Tuesday evening or Tuesday lunchtime.
Yeah, so it's all kicking off here. It's going to. Actually, to be honest, it's been quite calm here, but we're fairly sort of way and safe. So I don't think it's an issue in here that might be in some other places. But it's going to be interesting.
Who knows? By the time the show's edited and goes out, it will have all kicked off. No one will ever hear this.
I don't know. I hope not. But I hope I can get out of the country. That's one. But someone pointed out the Canadian border is not that far away.
Make a run for it.
Yeah.
Can you climb the wall?
Yeah.
And it also depends on whether we'll let you back in, of course.
Oh yeah, of course there is that as well.
Yeah. Now Jason's dropped off. Let's see if I can get him back on. I suspect he's restarting or something.
I'm back now. Hi.
You're there?
Yeah.
Yep. It's just Jason has dropped, I think, but he's probably having Skype issues. So while we're waiting for Jason, I can tell you about a new gadget that before we talk about some of Richard's gadgets, which she's had loads, but we'll talk about one of the new ones I just picked up today. The Lenovo Yoga Book.
Oh yes, yeah. Look, I saw that at IFA. It was pretty good.
Yeah. So this is a 10-inch tablet, but it's the one with the what they call it, Halo keyboard. Yeah.
So the haptic stroke blank keyboard which you can ink on. Very nice.
It is a really gorgeous device. It's thin. Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Jason comes on the live stream, and the live stream goes.
Yeah, no, we've got everybody now.
Yes. Here's a clue. Turn the power outlet on where your Surface dock is plugged into.
Schoolboy error.
Yes. The Surface dock doesn't do anything if it's not powered. It doesn't even act as a USB hub or anything. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jason. I would have thought you would have transferred to an iPad Pro by now, surely.
Yes.
That's about right.
I do have an iPad Air 2 sitting next to me and an iPad Mini, so I could use either of them.
Good grief, you've gone full tilt, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Well, my eldest has to have an iPad for school, so that's his, and the iPad Mini we had anyway. So,
yeah.
No, I was just saying. I know Gary's can only be on shortly. So before we talk about to Richard about some of his stuff, I was just saying I picked up the Lenovo Yoga Book.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah, I saw you pictures of it.
And it feels very much like a successor to the Surface 2, Surface RT. You know, the Surface 2 line with a very slim tablet first, Windows laptop second. You know, kind of the opposite way than the Surface does. The Surface Pro does, but it's incredibly thin, and light
Yeah.
as well. It's got a lovely hinge on the side. The keyboard, I mean, I'll do a full review. I haven't just started playing with it today. The keyboard is usable. I would say it's easier to type on than the original Surface Type cover. You remember the type cover?
I do.
Like,
Yes.
I got to play on one of those as well, and I agree totally. It's what I thought was way easier than the touch Surface keyboard. I mean, it's not. It's definitely not as good as a moving keyboard, but it's still pretty good. I just love the way it lights up, and you get all that the bars around it, and you can actually see where the keys are.
Yeah, and it feels incredibly nice to use it as a tablet in portrait mode. And yeah, I think that's my go-to device now as a tablet. I mean, the Surface is great, but sometimes it is a big device. But this is lovely, and yeah, it's very nice.
How do you find inking on it when it's not in keyboard mode?
Yeah, I only just done a brief amount of playing with it today. The first thing I did was trying to use the pen on the screen.
No, that doesn't work.
It doesn't work, no, because I was thinking of it like the Surface. The pen obviously goes on the keyboard part, the flat part, and actually it works really well. It's very good, actually, and it comes with like a notepad of paper and a different tip that you can put on the pen, so you can actually draw on the notepad. So you could sketch a diagram, and while it goes straight into something like OneNote or Sketchpad, because it obviously it's digitizing that at the same time. So that's actually pretty cool. But the pen's actually quite good for, and it comes up on the screen. So it's a bit like using one of those Wacom tablets, as an extra onto your laptop.
Is that based on the Wacom technology? I think it is, isn't it? The real whatever it is, ink.
It could be, yeah. But I think the combination. I'm not sure I'd ever use the notepad with it, but I can imagine if you were doing some, in a meeting, do some drawing, and you can just tear the paper off the pad and give it out, but you've got a digital copy of it as well. I thought that's pretty good. But the build quality is excellent. It's got a nice little hinge. But the other couple of things I've noticed so far, it's USB or micro USB for charging, which is a bit of a pain because it's slow. I would rather be much better if it had a nice USB-C port on there, but I suppose that's a cost thing as well. But it's not a cheap device either. But yeah, very, very nice. I'll do a full review, but I was sat browsing with it before, and it feels really nice, and it does definitely feel to me like almost like a Surface Mini could have been. I'm not sure whether the Surface Mini would be the 10-inch screen, but it does feel like that's the right size for that form factor, and really, really nice. So that's my go-to tablet now. Like will be. I'm not like Jason, just fully iOS everything.
Yeah.
So the keyboard itself, does it give any kind of feedback on it when you type?
It's got a haptic feedback.
Yeah, it's pretty good haptic as well, I thought.
Yeah. So, and you can have audio clicks as well, but I've turned that off. But yeah, it does have a haptic as you're typing. You can feel the keys, the haptic confirmation, and for most of the time it works fine. I probably could do a short blog post on it. I probably wouldn't want to type, a long article on it, and I'd pick up a device with a keyboard on like the Surface. But certainly for putting URLs in or email or Twitter, that kind of short text, then there's no problem with it at all. I mean, I set it all up today and all the user accounts, everything with the keyboard and on it, and never thought, I'll plug a keyboard in. It's fine. You don't need to plug anything into it.
Yeah, it's I think I mentioned before the button on the iPhone 7 it defies belief that it feels like that button is pressing, and even the 3D touch, it feels. Oh, sorry, video out playing. Even the 3D touch, it feels like the screen is pressing. So it is possible to get it right, and I just, and I wonder how close you could get it so that it actually feels like you are typing on a mechanical keyboard, despite the fact that it's not.
It doesn't fool you. It's not like that where I've not tried the button on the iPhone. Who do we lose then? Gary and Richard. Oh, Richard's back. I think Gary. Yeah, it doesn't fool you completely, but it's just enough confirmation to know you've hit the key right. And in fact, one thing I did notice is that the trackpad is relatively small. It's quite close to the space bar, and you can catch the space bar instead of the trackpad. But you've caught it because you can feel the feedback, whereas you don't get any feedback from the trackpad. So you can tell you're using it.
Yeah, because that was the one thing with the Surface touchpad. while after getting used to it, I could type on it quite well, but there just was no feedback other than maybe, maybe the keyboard click sound. That was the one thing. It was just, there was no essential feedback to tell you that it was working. So I'd be interested to see what the Lenovo feels like and how it compares to the iPhone 7 home button.
Yeah, I mean, it does put me in mind slightly of the of that first smartphone that BlackBerry did with the touchscreen and the haptic keys on that, which was out, crikey, a good few years ago now. It's quite similar, I think, to that, but it's that was quite clunky. This looks more like something out of that first Tron film.
It does actually. It feels like you type it on a device from the future in a film. It does feel a bit like that because it's so thin as well. But I mean, it's not by no means a cheap device. So despite with the Atom processor, it's still, so it actually is very well made. It's got that Lenovo solid feel to it. So the combination of it, it's got a very nice screen on it, and the keys. You do feel like you're using a sort of a futuristic device. And so I was typing away today on it, and no problem at all. And it's it's fast as well, for the Atom processor. It's a 64 gig SSD type thing, but it's
but of course I've got to say at this stage it's not your grandfather's Atom.
TM.
And with that, I better take my leave because I've got to go back to the next session. But have a great show.
All right, great, Gary. It was great to hear. We'll speak to you next week and give us a full report.
Enjoy the MVP summit.
I will indeed. I'm very much looking forward to hearing Richard's review. So I'll listen in later.
All right.
Take care, guys.
See you, Gary. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Oh, that kicked Jason off.
I'm still here.
Yeah, still here. But see Jason get back on. That's just the vagaries of Skype.
I must admit, yeah. I mean, it's yeah.
Yes, it just vagaries of Skype. Just end the call to Gary and it kills the other calls, but never mind.
Yeah.
And just Jason, this is Skype on Mac as well, so we're actually pushing the boundaries of what's possible. So,
we are, absolutely, yeah. I'm now waiting for Ian Dixon to switch to FaceTime for our weekly calls.
Yes, I think it's you pushing all this iOS agenda.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So to finish, like I said, I'll do a review on there, but it's a very nice device, and I wouldn't. It's certainly not like the Surface that a tablet that can replace your laptop. It's definitely a tablet first, but it's probably the best Windows experience tablet you that I've used. Considering the Surface is not really a straight tablet. I think we've talked about how sometimes that feels a bit heavy browsing on the sofa. This feels like an ideal device. I think it's the size, and it feels like an A4 book. I don't think it is quite A4. Maybe it is, but it feels like like a small notebook or an actual book, like you said earlier on, Richard, about a courier. It does feel like it could be something like that.
That's great.
Yeah. So the only question we have to ask is how long before an insider build goes on it.
Don't do it.
Now, there's no insider build on this at the moment, but we did get an insider build last week.
We did.
14959. Have you tried that?
Only installed it into a VM, but I haven't really used it in anger. But this is what they term the bug bash build, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, before we go into that, we should really do more of an introduction for Richard, really. Richard, you've been a listener for a long time, I guess.
Yes, I have. Yeah. Well, I kind of started off with XP Media Center, and so I was quite a fan of the old Media Center show, and then took it from there, really. So, long time listener. Yeah. Yeah,
and it's great to have you on the show. We've been in contact for years and years. So. One of the reasons why I thought to get you on the show is, one, you're into all this and you like talking about it like we do, and you've also done quite a few good reviews recently. So we'll take a look at them. But have you tried any of these insider builds on any of your machines?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I mean, I actually suffered from insider rage recently, and took myself back to the slow ring after it destroyed one of my machines. But since I've just got myself a Dell XPS, which means I've now got a spare laptop, which is going to become the sacrificial insider build laptop. So I'll be rejoining the fast ring again this week. Wish me luck.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I know we'll talk about that Dell in a sec, because you've got a review pending. I think probably tomorrow that'll be out as we record on Tuesday evening. But I'll tell you a bit about this build then. So it was released for PC and mobile, and on the surface, there wasn't really anything at all that was any different. But there was one thing under the hood, which was this universal update platform, and another acronym for us to get used to. Jason, did you see any information about that?
I saw the information that Donna, and I think also I can't remember the name, but somebody else also posted some real in-depth information. And then the first thing that struck me was whether or not this was the kind of missing piece of the puzzle that we've been looking for and talking about. In that, at the moment, every major release of Windows 10, like the kind of November update, the anniversary update, they are full builds of Windows. Like it's the same as upgrading from Windows 7 to Windows 8 or Windows 8 to Windows 10. You know, they are full brand new 4 gig ISOs. So, and it makes sense at some point that they should switch to a more kind of service pack type incremental updates. So I'm wondering if this is a building block for that.
Yeah, I think so. I don't, Richard, is this something you've been following?
Not too closely at the moment. I suspect it's going to become a very important part of my life to do this week, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think really you summed it up right, Jason. It's a way of delivering changes rather than whole builds. So we won't get the 5 gig images going forward. We will get the smaller deltas, which on a build like this week, which was hardly anything, could be a few hundred meg, and then a full system, a full update like the anniversary update, could be into the gigs, but at least it won't be the full image each time.
Yes, yeah. Although that also comes with some potential concerns as well, because the one benefit, so the downside of the full build major update is that you've got a massive download. You've also got kind of a high risk update where a brand new Windows 10 operating system is put in, and then your old settings and old applications are then slipstreamed into that. So one, that's high risk, but it also comes with a benefit, because ever since, and I think I'm right in saying ever since the Windows 8 days, that you essentially end up with a brand new build of Windows with your settings copied in, whereas with XP, it was the new build kind of copied into your existing one. So the one plus side of that is every time we get a major release of Windows 10, you're essentially clean installing Windows 10, but without losing all your apps and settings and personalization. So if they do switch to a full incremental model, then there is that risk that Windows 10 will just become bloated and slow and sluggish over time, like was affected by Windows XP and Windows Vista.
I did wonder though, because they didn't really say too much in the details, whether we'll still get the idea of a refresh build, but it'll just be the changes between the previous build that get delivered.
Yeah, I think
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'd quite like to see is some sort of middle ground. So, whereas my Apple fanboy switch going on, so I mean, Windows Phone does the same thing, but iOS in particular. So when it's a major release, so i.e. iOS 9 or iOS 10, you actually get the full operating system, don't you? Almost, and then what point releases are incrementals, and I'm wondering whether or not Windows might actually switch to that. So I still think while the name will still be Windows 10, there will be what you could label Windows 11, Windows 12 significant updates. Let's call them, let's say that Threshold 1 and Redstone 1 were those two major milestones, and then Redstone 2 and Redstone 3 become like Windows, let's call it 11.1, 11.2, 11.3, and just the commercial marketing branding stays as Windows 10. So I could see maybe a model where real big updates are the full new build, but the point releases become much more incremental, and I think that would be the ideal platform.
Yeah, and I think Insider's going to see this fairly soon, aren't they? They're going to start to introduce that fairly soon, and then I guess really.
Yeah, the Windows 10 mobile Redstone 2 preview build used it this time, didn't it?
Yeah,
and then it's going to come to desktop.
And I wonder if that's why we had those issues a couple of builds ago, where people were struggling to get the downloads. It was all related to that new deployment system.
Yes, yeah.
I guess one question I've got around this from a newbie point of view is how does this differ from how, say, patches are delivered now, where obviously you don't get the whole OS each time. Microsoft has got to patch a whole load of stuff every month. What's the difference here?
I think the difference is maybe it's a patch is a DLL, an updated DLL, and that just gets applied to the system. The way that insider builds are released, is it, like Jason said, a complete install. And I'm not sure that this new method is kind of a halfway between them, where it brings the image down, but based on the changes, and just applies those changes. So if the .NET Framework 4.5 DLL isn't changed with the new release, it's not included in the package. Or and I'm just reading the blog post to try and see if it makes it clear. The other way is it could create the image for you as it needs it. So it looks at the versions you've got, and goes up to the cloud, gets the new versions and downloads them, and then applies it. But essentially it's the same installation package. That's one way, but the other way could be, like you're saying, it's just a regular Windows update, and we go away from having these 5 gig deployed images with the big circle on that, all the big configuring updates that takes a long time.
Yeah, actually, probably thinking about it a bit more, probably what I expect it to be. So Windows 10 maintains a full installation image on the hard drive. That's how the PC reset and PC refresh works. So actually, I wonder if this is more similar to, I don't know if either of you ever you've got a Windows 7 RTM build, and then you slipstream in Service Pack 1 or Service Pack 2, so that if you do a fresh install, you get Service Pack 2. And I'm wondering actually if it's maybe switching to that. Service Pack type model, but it just slipstreams the latest updates into that base build, and then maybe the upgrade actually still does do a clean installation, and then moves your files and applications and settings into that build.
Exactly.
So so that's possibly a more closer to the model that they're aiming for.
Yeah, because I would guess you're going to have the option you have now, which is to set Windows 10 back to its clean state, but that clean state would be the latest updated clean state versus going all the way back to Windows 10.0 or whatever we're going to call it.
And that would also explain how they're able to cut down the download size, because it's literally just slipstreaming in what Service Packs used to be, half, maybe 1 gig in size.
And it just literally depends on what's changed. So my example was that the .NET Framework 4.5 is still the same. Then it doesn't download those bits, but then the core DLLs have changed or whatever, so they do get introduced. And like you said, then it just creates a new image based off these combined files, the original source and the newer files. So that would make sense, and then that way you get a nice clean install as well.
Yeah, because in some ways, when the Xbox One kind of does that already, those builds are very small. I think they're normally about 500 gig max in size. So digressing slightly, I'll tell you one thing I'd love to see come to the Xbox One, and that is the Windows 10 desktop feature, where it can gather the update files from other Windows 10 PCs on the network. Because with 2 Xbox Ones, when they're both enlisted in the preview program, when there's an update, that's both of them downloading a 500 meg file.
And I have to say though, I don't know, I can't say I've really ever seen the effects of having this thing where it downloads from another device on the network. Maybe I've never had 2 identical devices on the network at the same time that this could work from. But here I've got the Surface Pro 3, and I've got the 2 Atom powered tablets that have got the builds on. And I can imagine that the Surface Pro 3 being 64-bit, maybe the image is different, so it wouldn't help with the 2 Atom devices. But the 2 Atom devices, the Encore and the Lynx, are just the same processor. So I would suspect the image files will be the same. But it always seems to take a long while to download. I've never seen one suddenly get a really fast download compared to the first one, if you know what I mean. So I've never seen the benefits of that yet. I mean, it might be happening under the hood, but I can't say I've really seen it.
You know why, Ian? It's because your broadband's so fast. You don't
I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah, it benefits me, put it that way.
Yeah, but I mean, have you seen it? Although you've just tried a few VMs, so you're not really going to tell anyway, are you, at the moment? But
I mean, I've got 4 Windows 10 devices here, and they're all standard. I've not seen it at all so far. So
but this new method would definitely help, and I think it's good that they're doing that. So
it helps Jason, that's for sure. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to think actually, because I think it's probably with the number of machines, it's probably quite rare that they're actually all on anyway. I mean, because obviously my Surface Pro 4 is normally either asleep or powered off in my bag. the desktop PC barely ever get switched on. So probably the only two that are ever likely to be on at the same time would be an old Dell laptop that the kids use, or my wife's Surface Pro 2.
Yeah. So, I'll be interested to see this when we actually get the next build for when we get, when it comes to the PC and we get a smaller download. That'll be quite good. Other than that, the changes were really minor. They were just fixes, and there was a scaling setting in Hyper-V, which you may have seen on your Hyper-Vs, but that's it really.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a useful setting for me.
Yeah, so that was this week's build, or last week's build, so I should say. I did do videos of both of those, which you can have a look at. And as I mentioned earlier on, we've got quite a lot of reviews recently, thanks to Richard. But I did do my review of the Asus Zen Flipbook, Asus Zen Book Flip. Get it right. That's quite a nice little thin laptop, 700 quid device, sort of lower end of the Surface Pro type range. Bit of a disappointment with the screen though, but actually a nice device. I've just got another Asus to give a try. But Richard, you've been certainly on the reviews recently. Let's think. What was we talked about last week? We talked about your experience with the Next Dock and how it doesn't seem to be working for me at the moment.
You've broken it, yeah.
It's looked like that, but yeah.
I must admit, I have been reading the forums. There are problems with the power supply, certainly, and it's very clearly when you hold it and touch it, it's a device that's been built down to a price. It really has been built down to a price. So I think it's of no surprise that maybe it's having a few issues there.
Yeah, and I've got another charger, so I think I've got one that seems to have the same connector, so I'll give it a try and see if I can get that working. If I can't, I've done the review. I've written the review. I was just going to do the video, so I'll write that up and get that posted, because actually when it was working, it was actually quite interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of it's one of those insights into what could have been, I think, with the Microsoft ecosystem, where you can see how Continuum could work really, really well if only there were more apps and if only a few more things were done. And of course, you hope that Microsoft will keep on going and maybe put another 2 years worth of effort into that operating system, into Windows Mobile, and we can really see that promise come to pass. But my concern is they'll give up and move on, as they seem to keep doing, and the Next Stop and Continuum will just be another interesting avenue that could have been but wasn't.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's funny. We'll talk about mobile later, but it had that Windows Mobile really, or Windows 10 Mobile really taken off, it would have been a viable device with the UWP apps. But there's still time yet. But it's a nice proof of concept, I would guess. That's the best way of describing it. I
think it is. I think when you think, yes, this, I can see how this could really work well. And I mean, at the moment, I suspect we're using it mainly for Raspberry Pi work, because again, it really works well with the Raspberry Pi. It's great. Yeah.
Now, the other thing you really looks quite interesting is the Amazon Echo. How are you getting on with that?
I'm not going to use her name because she might wake up. She's always listening, Alexa is. Yeah, it's one of those devices. As I said earlier, I've kind of always been interested in the connected home and the media centers and what have you. And it's a really great device for controlling music and talking to you. I was quite surprised because I was looking for a Bluetooth speaker, and it seemed like a nice Bluetooth speaker, but also with this voice control as well. And I've been really impressed. It links into TuneIn, it links into Spotify, it links into my Prime Music, but what's really impressed me has been the extensibility of what they call skills or the apps and things on it, where you can ask it about the next train to London or the weather or the news, and then the intelligence it's got comes down more to the app developers themselves. And I've begun looking into actually writing some skills, and it's really quite an open, easy system to use. So yeah, I'm extremely impressed so far.
Yeah, it does look a nice device, and I think if I didn't have a Sonos already, then I think I would definitely look at that for music playback. But having the Sonos doing the music, it's kind of, I would only use it for the sort of the speech, and I probably wouldn't use it that much. But yeah. It does look really nice, and I know they do a what's the other unit that they do, which is without this Bluetooth speaker?
The Dot, is it, or the?
Yeah, the Dot. Yeah.
Yes. So it spreads around the house. Yeah, I mean, I would say one thing. Obviously, I'm based in the UK, so a lot of the services which the US guys are probably used to getting aren't here. Things like retail and ordering stuff don't work that well at the moment in the UK. But you can see it's getting there, and yeah, it's the way it can its speech recognition from across the room is really good. It understands my accent. Thankfully, it doesn't understand my 4-year-old daughter's voice when she asks to play Frozen, which is wonderful. That's I may that feature last a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll come eventually. Then it will start to recognize it, and you'll enjoy listening to it all the time. I think I know the one thing that was kind of missing was the if then that I know the US version supports. So hopefully they'll get that added soon, because that is quite interesting, because I do use that on Android. So it'd be quite nice to have that. I guess you could hook it up to third-party services as well.
Exactly, yeah, and I think a lot of that does come from the skills that are being developed by third parties. So I think that's going to come, and I think because it's service based, so it's not dependent on what's in the device. It just goes out to the Amazon cloud and calls an AWS service. I can see that all happening quite quickly if it takes off. So, but thus far, yeah, I'm really impressed actually.
Yeah, that's a really nice looking device. Now, there were rumors that Microsoft were going to launch something at the October event around this, weren't there? The Microsoft version.
Yeah, I think Paul Thorpe may have mentioned something on his website about it as well. There was something lined up which got canned again.
Yeah.
Again,
there's an article on The Verge about that today as well. Yeah.
That was the Xbox streaming app. Yeah, a streaming device, a bit like a Roku or whatever.
Yeah, there was two things that were mentioned there. I was going to talk about them tonight as well. One was this home. There've been rumored of this home system, and then that potentially been canned right at the last minute. And the other one was the Xbox Media Streamer, or like you said, like a Roku kind of device, which is something that we've been asking for ages, as a way to get Microsoft's movies and TV and Groove onto a TV without having to have an Xbox. But it sounds like that device was real and close to being released.
Yeah. I mean, they were expecting it. I think it was at the Xbox event. I think the problem is I still don't understand why Microsoft haven't got their services onto other devices. I'm still not sure how a Microsoft streaming device really fits in, because I still don't think, apart from the Xbox, that people really see that side of Microsoft. So I can understand why they kind of canned it. They really want people. Let's say you're spending £150 on a streaming device, which I know they don't cost that much, but let's say it was a premium device, then you're almost getting up to, are you stealing customers away from the Xbox? Would they maybe stretch that a bit further and get a gaming console, which I'm not necessarily convinced that they would, but still struggle to see the market for that.
I mean, it would kind of make more sense for them to develop apps and things for the Fire Stick or the Chromecast or whatever, and just or even the Amazon Echo, which we were talking about just now, to say, play this from my Groove collection. It wouldn't be hard for them to do, and perhaps that's what they're doing in their brave new world of services. Obviously, it's quite tough being a Microsoft fan at the moment. But
I mean, they are partly where there with Groove. Groove works on Sonos. And it works really well. It works, and I use that quite often. And there's iOS apps and Android apps, not as good as the Windows apps, but they're there and they do work. Movies and TV is only on Windows, and it's on Xbox, but it's the kind of area that it's this service that gets the least amount of chat, and no one's really aware of that, are they?
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder how much longer that service has got for the world, with the likes of Netflix and Amazon Prime and what have you. It does seem to be disappearing and maybe not getting quite the love it needs from Microsoft. Yeah.
Whereas I think Groove might stick around. I think obviously Gary's seen some stuff at the MVP Summit that's coming, and we know we've got this other, the Music Maker and the creativity update. So music perhaps seems a bit safer, but being on other people's platforms seems to be the way that Microsoft prefer to operate now.
Yeah, I was very heartened to hear Gary using the word media. That was great. Now, if only somebody would put the word centre in that sentence as well, and I'd be really happy.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I don't think you're ever going to see that again. That's definitely not going to be coming back. But yeah, so that's another device that we put on the Microsoft list. So somewhere in the warehouse, there's a Surface Mini, streaming stick. What else is there?
Soft sled.
Yeah. all these devices are in a warehouse somewhere, and it just shows perhaps that Microsoft are prepared to be a bit more structured with their vision, perhaps, and perhaps we won't see as many devices being killed off if they're not launching devices anymore.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, I think what they need to do is to focus on a platform and stick with it, and just stick with it for a few years, and not put a year in and then give up, and a year and then give up, because at that point you start to think, well, am I going to actually invest in this new platform? Because they may just kill it after a year or so. It is tough.
Yeah, I mean, I know certainly, Jason, you've been bitten by that with video services, haven't you? That you're very wary of where you get them from now.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I really try and only buy stuff if it's got ultraviolet included.
So it makes me wonder though if that really, the end of any desires Microsoft have with the entertainment devices apart from and consumer devices apart from the Xbox. Really, they're just taking up the high end, and they'll leave the consumer, the other OEMs to come up with consumer devices, which does seem to be working to a degree. I mean, we're talking about Lenovo Yoga Book, and we've seen, I think Dell, isn't it, that was leaked or showed off a video, sort of a Surface Studio type device that's coming from Dell.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I mean, I think the Microsoft Surface approach has been excellent. Actually, building these really high-end, high-quality devices to show the OEMs what actually they should be doing, and I think that approach has worked extremely well.
Apart from the battery issues,
we shall mention the battery issue, shall we?
Yeah, and there was an update for the Surface Pro 3 today, but they've still not posted any details of what's changed in it yet.
They still haven't updated anything, no.
I just checked about half an hour ago. Nothing yet. I'll put the details up when that eventually comes out. So that was the sort of Microsoft Home, and I tell you, one thing I did see as well is that they've opened up the APIs for the Groove Music service. They've had an API for a while, but I think you had to be certain developers. I think you had to kind of get registered with it. I think they've opened it up to more developers, or up to all developers now. So there is potential for developers to incorporate Groove Music into their own apps. So we might see a bit more in the way of third-party stuff coming out from there, because it's possible that a third party could create these apps that use Groove Music. So we may see something new coming out on there. Now, some of the other things, Rich, I know you've been reviewing something we like to talk about with smartwatches, but you were reviewing a new Fitbit, wasn't it, last week?
Yeah, well, it's not that new actually. It's I did a long term of the
that's it, yeah.
Of the Charge HR, and I'm actually working on a report on the Charge HR 2 at the moment. Yeah, I mean, quite keen on wearables. So it seems fitness is kind of the main use of them, and which again is one of the reasons why I find Microsoft's decision to drop the band a little strange, because I think they actually had a really good wearable there, which if they pushed it a bit longer, maybe it could have gained more traction. But
yeah,
but the Fitbit itself, it benefits from being quite, it is an inexpensive device, and it does work well as I said in the review. It's got a basic screen. It tells you if phone calls are coming in. It records heart rate. It does distance. It's quite basic but quite cheap. Although the problem with it, which I think is common to many wearables, was I know of 3, including 2 of them, that basically fell apart after a few months, and I'm not quite sure why that was. Basically, because it's all one molded strap, the strap began to peel away, and I mean, I've not read much about it in the press, but judging by how quickly Fitbit changed them over with no questions asked, I do wonder if there's an issue there, because the new Fitbit Charge HR2, the strap can now be taken off and changed over, which I think would solve the issues that I was having for sure.
It's funny because I mean, so many people have had problems with the Microsoft band, and I think I'm on my third band 2, and I had 2 band the original band. So it does seem to be a difficult thing to make these hard wearing.
Exactly, especially if one gets sweaty. The other thing that really annoyed me about it, and it drives me nuts about devices, is it's got a proprietary power connector, which in this day and age, I think it's just either make it wireless, so it can charge wirelessly, or have a standard connector. But instead, it's got a wide open socket which sits right on your sweaty skin with no cover. And you can see where that's going, can't you? Really, it's not going to end well, is it?
No. Now, I guess Jason, you'll be going for your £10,000 gold-plated Apple Watch now, won't you?
Oh yes.
It's in the post, Jason. It's okay.
That's good. Yeah. Getting delivery tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty I've got with the Apple Watch and that sort of device is now being pitched as a fitness device, but they're really expensive as a fitness device. I wouldn't want to be wearing one in the gym and swinging it around. Yeah. It's just, you think that's a lot of money to be swinging around a weight machine or something, or on a treadmill. It just whereas a Fitbit or Garmin device, or a Nike device, they're all quite rubberized and quite strong. And most importantly, if you destroy it, it's not the end of the world. But I think I'd cry if I destroyed an Apple Watch by mistake.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I have a problem with the Apple Watch is, they are really expensive devices, and I've never spent that much money on a watch. I know some people do spend a lot of money on very nice jewelry watches, and if I was going to invest in a watch costing that sort, it would be, for me, I'd want it to to be an investment of 5-6 years. It would mean something, probably as a present from family or something. I just, that problem, the Apple Watch is a device like everything else these days. There will be a new revision out every year, or at least every other year, and so £300-400 on a watch every 2 years, plus for those that's lucky enough to be able to replace a phone every 2 years, and maybe it's a ludicrous amount of money that's just for something that it basically just tells the time and other stuff.
I mean, I saw that there's a Tag Heuer Android watch, and it's £10,000. And it's runs the Android Wear 1.5, and whether the version 2 comes out in next year, and it might not work with it, and it's something that sits in your drawer. Then you can't do that when it's a £10,000 device, but you're kind of stuck where an analog watch, a Tag Heuer watch or whatever. It's like a collectible piece, isn't it? That even if you spent, I wouldn't spend that much on a watch anyway, but even if you did spend a large amount, like you said, it's something you own and keep and cherish and have memories of. It's not, certainly, you're not doing anything that's got the technology in there is is almost as a consumer item, and it goes up on my shelf of history behind me over there with the Zune and the original band.
I mean, I guess perhaps think of the Apple Watch in itself a bit like the Rolex, where the Rolex, they always say that you don't buy it, you're just guarding it for the next generation. With the Apple Watch, you don't buy it, you're just using it for a couple of years, and then Apple will obsolete it. So
exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you in 30 years' time, I mean, I've got with my grandfather's pocket watch, which I inherited, and it still works, and it's 50 odd years old or something like that, and I keep it and use it on special occasions or whatever. You're not going to be doing that with my band too, are they, in 50 years' time and still working? It's no chance. And even a £10,000 Apple Watch or a Tag Heuer watch.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So that's the nature of technology. But I think, like you said, the Fitbit type devices. I use this. I've got the Moto 360 Sport on it. It's got the rubberized finish to it, and it does feel quite robust. But again, it's not a really expensive device like the Apple Watch. So when that gets replaced, that's it. And I don't have to.
I don't feel it.
Guilt over it. Now the other thing that you mentioned earlier on that you've been looking at is a new laptop.
Yes. Well, I mean, I don't want to be too down on Apple. sounding quite negative here. So
Jason will balance out with all the pro Apple stuff anyway.
I am talking on a Mac Mini at the moment. So, I was basically looking to replace my existing laptop and also do some iOS development. And so you got to have a Mac to do that on. And so I was waiting for the MacBook Pro announcement to come out, and I was very excited, and I watched the presentation, and I saw what the MacBook Pro was going to be and what it was going to cost, and so I bought a Dell XPS after that. I mean, basically it's the XPS 13, and it's been quite interesting because I had looked at the previous generation of XPSs, and there isn't, to be frank, a lot of difference. This has the new Kaby Lake processor.
Yeah.
and some other bits and pieces. But to be honest, in use, you don't really notice the difference between it and Skylake, in my opinion. It's the main difference, I'd say, is battery life. I've heard people getting 17 hours out of this thing.
Wow.
I've managed 11 so far. That's the best I've done. But it's the first laptop I've had with a touch screen, and oh, wow, once you use a touchscreen on a laptop, you never go back, do you? It's
No, definitely not.
absolutely fantastic, because I used to have a Surface 2, the RT, and it took me a while to stop poking screens on normal laptops. And now, of course, you've got this screen on this XPS. Everything's being poked the whole time now, screen-wise anyway. It's but it's a great device. I'm pretty impressed with it. As I said, the battery life is great. Spec-wise, it's an i7. It's got 16 gigs of RAM. It's got half a terabyte of SSD. So it's a good development machine as well. Jason, I'm sure you'll appreciate the ability to run all the VMs and things on it without it breaking a sweat. And basically, I just looked at the cost of the MacBook Pros to get a similar spec machine, and with the price hike, it's just the difference is enormous now. So what I've done is I've got the XPS. I've got a Mac Mini for iOS stuff, and with the change I had left over, we're going away on a family holiday. So everyone's a winner, really.
Yes, it's a win-win for everybody.
It's interesting that, because the XPS is a really nice machine. I'm using the 15 now to do the recording on, and the screen is really nice. I think it's the same on the 13, isn't it? There's no bezel. There's hardly any bezel at the side and the top.
Yeah, well, it does mean the webcam sits in the most unflattering place possible.
Yes, it does.
Right
Yeah,
up your nose, doesn't it? It's right.
Hence why we're not on that camera now. We're on the other camera on the Asus over there.
Yeah, and of course the other thing which I'm actually very disappointed with is it's late 2016. This is a high-end laptop. Doesn't do Windows Hello, which I was very surprised at, actually. That it's got no fingerprint sensor, and the camera won't do the direct recognition. So I kind of thought that was now a standard thing, really, but it doesn't appear to be.
And you do actually get used to that. I noticed with the Surface Pro 4, I've got quite used to doing that. Although I prefer the fingerprint reading, I think, on the phone. But I guess it's got the USB-C Thunderbolt port as well.
It's got one Thunderbolt port. I've done a video showing all that, but it's got one Thunderbolt port. It's got 2 USB 3 ports, which is fine. That's all okay. One thing it has got, actually, that I was really heartened about, having seen a lot of other laptops, is it's got screws in the base. You can take it apart. Now, and I've seen a few tear-down videos where it looks like you can change the battery out and the memory as well, if you want. It appears to be possible. So it's not glued together in the same way that modern laptops are. So I was actually quite pleased to see that. I've not dared try and do it yet. But
wait for your warranty to be out before you start doing that.
Well, exactly. But the thing is, I've got an old i7 Asus laptop that I've had for a long time, 5, 6, 7 years, I think. And that would be great if I could only change the battery, because the battery lasts about 15 minutes now. And the rest of it's going to be the new insider machine. But because I can't change the internals, it means it's no longer useful as a laptop, which I think is a shame. But this looks like maybe it's possible.
And when you looked at comparing that to the MacBook, did the touch bar on the MacBook not appeal to you?
No, it didn't appeal to me. It actually felt. I was, it's it's an interesting gimmick. I think. I don't think it doesn't justify the difference in price at all. I mean, it's what, about £300-400 between the base one and the one with the touch bar, and there's not a lot of difference in spec apart from that touch bar. Maybe it's going to be a wonderful thing, and we'll all think it's great. But at the moment, I sat through the presentation and I've seen one in the flesh, and it doesn't look particularly impressive. I think what would be more interesting is, and what I was surprised at, that they didn't perhaps go more down the way that Lenovo's gone, because I think that's very exciting. That whole soft keyboard, rather than just having this strip at the top, which I gather the teardown guys are saying is effectively a mini iPad in there.
Yeah, I think I saw something about it. It's almost like an Apple Watch, isn't it? That's the way that the connectivity goes to the screen. But
yeah.
I don't think, for me, it doesn't, because you've got to look down at it, and I think
exactly. I mean, and right now I'm looking at my screen. I've got a Mac Mini. The screen's open here, and really, what I'd prefer to have touch is the application dock. Would be more useful if I had to choose a portion to have touchable. The rest of it having slidey volume controls and things, I just don't think that's it's a nice gimmick and it looks great, but I'm just not sure it's particularly useful compared to having the full touch screen. So maybe we'll see that in a few iterations. So perhaps this is Apple's first step towards having a touch screen rather than doing the full big bang and having to eat any humble pie that maybe.
And I know that you said to ask you about the Mac Mini. So how are you finding that?
Oh, it's yes. I've spent the day trying to install software on this Mac Mini. It's having used Macs a few years ago and then used Windows, now come back to the Mac. It's been an interesting experience. The operating system is quite different. I mean the phrase I use if I was being unkind is maybe a little Fisher Price. I can see why it's very hard to do anything wrong. It stops you doing lots of things. It's certainly been. I've been a lot less productive trying to make things work on this than I would normally be. Let's put it that way. It's not something that I'd recommend if you're used to using Windows for sure. I will say one thing actually. OneDrive and the Microsoft apps work really well. Microsoft have done a great job with their apps on it. Word 2016. It was quite strange writing an article on the Mac Mini, and then I switched over to my XPS, and the same article I could see the edits, and the Word doc was open on both, and the edits were happening in real time. It was
right.
Quite impressive, really.
It's funny you mentioned that because that was the one, almost the same thing. I mean, Jason, we're having a conversation on Twitter today about how, because we kind of say how you're getting on with your iPhone, and Jason, you were saying really it's the way that the Microsoft have made the apps cross-platform that's actually made it relatively straightforward for you to migrate across.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that worked so well for me with having a Windows phone was, for my business, I use Office 365, and so I kind of rely on that. And so, without apps like Excel and Word and OneDrive and all those kind of Microsoft services, if they went on iOS, it would have been a really painful transition. I'd have had to be finding alternatives, and that's not to say there aren't alternatives out there, but when we've talked about many times, when you're buried in an ecosystem, it's really hard to extract yourself from it. So just being able to carry them across is really, and Richard, like you say, it's a really, we all lament it and complain about the fact that Microsoft seem to be favoring other platforms, but and that's what's made it possible for me to switch.
Exactly. So, yeah, and with OneDrive, I mean, as you know, I'm not the world's greatest OneDrive fan. Wish placeholders would work again, but I've been just really impressed with how seamless it's been on this Mac and the PC and the phone, the iPhone and my Windows phone. It's just Microsoft. I think that platform is really good. They've done a great job there.
Yes, yeah, and it just works so Simpson, like you say. It's you can literally be editing it. I mean, my wife got her iPhone before I switched, and OneNote, we've got a shared shopping list, and I could still see her editing it and still got all the changes synced across, and it just worked really, really well.
And I think really that goes back to what we're saying earlier on about the Microsoft app dongle for media consumption. Really, the way that for Microsoft at the moment, apart from with Windows 10 and PC, that's fine, but for mobile especially, then the crucial thing for them is to have the app ecosystem there, so that if they do come out with a game changer phone or a device like phone, it might be something totally different. If you're already using iOS, you're already using Outlook and Office 365 and Groove and Skype for Business, and you're already using all those things, then the underlying platform isn't that important, and you can easily move between them. And it's about your data and where your data lives that's important, and that's where the money's made. So at the end of the day, so I think that's why it's important for Microsoft to have this cross-platform approach. It makes moving platforms easy, but it also means that you stay with Microsoft and you don't. In your case, Jason, a couple of years ago, when you moved to an iPhone, you would have been looking at third-party Excel and Word apps, and you may have switched to Dropbox, and you would have left Microsoft ecosystem behind and maybe never come back. But because of the way they've done it now, is you stayed with them. So yeah, you're not using their OS, but maybe in 3 years' time, there's a game-changing phone, and it's easy to move back again then because everything is already on the service.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Microsoft have kind of the seeds there to tempt people like myself back. I do miss the live tiles. That is the one painful bit for me. But if Continuum kind of takes off, then that could also tempt me back in terms of it's never going to be my dev environment in terms of being able to run Hyper-V and SQL clusters and all sorts in a virtual environment. But in terms of being able to just take up one device and plug it into a keyboard and a mouse and be able to work remotely is something that does appeal. But without that double use, I mean, most phones these days are kind of double use in that, you use them for business and also personal. And so you kind of need those apps that fit into your life. And I've always said, and it's still the case, I'm not a massive app user, but I am already downloading more apps to my iPhone just because of the sheer convenience of it. Things like I've got the Costa app on there, I've got my Tesco Club Card app, and just silly little things, but they're all on there.
UK snow map.
Yeah, might need that the next couple of days, I think.
But it's I know we've said this, so I won't label it too much, but we've said it's little things. I mean, I was at a concert, the Australian Pink Floyd show on Friday, or Saturday, sorry, and they've got an app, and they're advertising their app on the screen before the concert starts, and it's iOS and Android. It's the usual story, isn't it? That you are left out if you're not using it, and then as soon as you've got apps, you can get the apps, and you might not use them very often, but they're there, and I think that's the problem Microsoft has for Windows 10 Mobile. It's going to take a change in paradigm shift before it balances out again, but we probably will see that as things do change. You can't see them always coming, but they do.
Yeah, although I mean, again, Microsoft, I think are having been a Windows Phone user and being sad about what's happened. I can see their platform game. They're definitely playing the long game here, because I mean, the recent reports saying very few vendors make a lot of money out of Android phones. The actual hardware makers are struggling, but the platform vendors like Microsoft, it's people pay for their Office 365 subscriptions, and it's just a regular income. And again, just very impressed with Office 365 cross-platform, Mac, iOS, and Windows, as Jason says.
Yeah, that's definitely the way forward. So I think that's probably all we've got time for tonight. Just so Richard, you've got a couple of the things you're working on. You can give us a teaser on those. You've got
Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to listening to the Plex show. Which will be very exciting, because I'm in the process of building my first media center since I decommissioned my old one. Obviously, I had a Windows home server, I had a media center, all decommissioned, and I'm in the process of building one using a box from Quiet PC and Plex. So I'll be writing a series of articles on how I get on with Plex and this new box, which is massively overpowered for its purpose.
Which is always what you want. Excellent stuff. Well, it was really good to get you on the show, Richard. So where can people go then to find out more what you're up to and follow you on Twitter, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, you'll find anything I write will be on thedigital-lifestyle.com, and on Twitter you can find me as Richard_Speed.
Excellent. And Jason, where can we find you and what you're up to?
You can find me on Twitter at Database Chase, talking about iPhones and general Apple things.
General love about all things Apple. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I even heard Josh Pollard mention me on Entertainment 2.0. I think he said he expected me to be one of the last holdouts of Windows 10 Mobile, but yeah, unfortunately, we're all flying the coop.
So have you still kept your 930, or have you handed that down to the family now?
I was going to hang on to it, and I was tempted. I was going to put some insider builds on it to get a feel for Redstone 2, but my eldest son, who'd got a Lumia 640, claimed ownership of it, so it's now been reset and he's using it. And so my youngest son's now claimed his old, now redundant 640. So yeah, I've had a bit of a shuffle around. Unfortunately, the one Windows mobile device that I'm left with, Windows Phone device, isn't capable of running insider build. So right. I think we're going to keep it hanging around for the inevitable phone breakage that might happen. Hopefully not mine.
I've still got an HTC Trophy 7 lurking around, which Windows 7. Oh, happy days.
Yeah.
I think to be honest, even my kids can't quite believe that their dad's got an iPhone now. So
yeah, the world will come to.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, we should be back next week, same time, 9 p.m. Tuesday evening and UK time, the chat room or on the podcast, and you can get us on our YouTube channel and everything else. So I should have the review of the Lenovo coming up, and I've got an ASUS video to do, and I will get the next doc video, or not the next doc review posted. Even if there is no video, I'll try and fix it in the meantime. But until then, we'll see you next week. Richard, it was great to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming on the show, and we'll definitely get you back on in the future to talk about how you're getting on with your new kit.
It's great fun, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Richard.
And yes, we'll speak to you next week.
Yes, cheerio. Bye-bye.
See you, bye.